What's up, y'all? It is Tasha. I am back with another review of Married at First Sight. We are on episode 15 at this point, and I'm like, bruh, how many more episodes do we have before Decision Day? And then how many episodes is Decision Day going to be at this point? Like, we gotta only have like 3-4 more episodes. Like, y'all, please. I'm over it at this point, y'all. But here we are. Season 14, episode 15 of Married at First Sight. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you keep coming back every week to watch the review, why aren't you subscribed? It's free. Go ahead and click the button at the bottom. Thank you. Appreciate you. So let's jump into it so that we can discuss the shenanigans that happened tonight. So it's 11 days until Decision Day. So the couple's retreat has come to an end and they are headed back home with less than 2 weeks until Decision Day. Jasmina and Michael talk about the medium, and he says he thought his mother and grandmother would come through and speak to him, not his brother. So, of course, the medium had mentioned 2 other people. So Jasmina asked about what that meant in relation to his brother. And he said, basically, it's the people that picked him up. So I couldn't really tell from this story if it was people that he knew, somebody that was giving him a ride. I don't know at this point, but he says it's basically a road rage incident that happened, and the person that was in the car beside them just shot in the passenger side where his brother was. So that's how his brother was killed. He asked if anything surprised her, and she said, yeah, the twins next year, in a year and a half, really surprised me. And she says that would mean we would have to have a slip up. And I'm like, but first you got to actually have sex. That's how babies are made, Jasmina. Did we skip over that part of, the little talk with your parents or, biology, anatomy class? You got to do that before you can actually, have babies. So we then see Katina and Elijah Wan. She says she's looking forward to more road trips with the trifling Elijah Wan for whatever reason. She says since she met him, she has been stepping out of her comfort zone, and she never thought she would run with the sheep or whatever that animal was. And I'm like, what is it with her and Elijah Wan and these animals? It was an alpaca. Let's say it together. Alpaca, which does not look like a sheep. Okay? All right. She says that she's worried. She says that he is worried about the timeline because he doesn't know if Katina can keep him satisfied. He doesn't know if Katina can keep him satisfied, if he's willing to have kids in 2 years, or if he's willing to sacrifice traveling. He doesn't know if Katina can keep him satisfied. All right, I'm not going to say it no more. But I'm just like, Elijah Wan, you. Do you ever think about what this girl wants or needs at any point during your day or any point during this experiment? Because I'm just not feeling it when he considers her feelings and her needs and what she needs him to do as a husband. I don't understand. So now each of the couples visit their childhood homes, write a letter to their younger self, and reveal something vulnerable. I don't care for this part of the season when it comes to this. It's just like, because I feel like at this point we've heard a lot about how these people have already grown up and why they may behave the way that they do. So it's just kind of like these things don't necessarily reveal more information. It just makes everybody cry. Okay. Anyway, so Jasmina and Michael are first up, and they go to her childhood home, and she says it was the last place she lived with her mom and dad under one roof. And they moved after her parents divorced because her mom didn't want to stay there because, it was their home together. She talks about a green bathtub and how her dad washed her and her sister's hair. She shows the school she went to, and she really says that it was a safe place for her because she had a lot going on at home. She says she had a teacher there that made her forget about everything going on at home, and she needed that love that she received from that teacher, and it really influenced her to become an educator. I was just like, finally, we're getting something out of Jasmina. It only took 15 episodes at this point, but I guess we're finally getting there with her. She then reads the letter she wrote to her younger self, and she starts to cry. She talks about everything she went through at her age, at a young age, her parents separating, being bullied, her first stepmother that didn't really show any affection to her, meeting the teacher at school that she really liked, and talks about how she really wants school to be a safe place for her students as well. Michael really gets emotional with her, really hugs her, and I feel like this is the first real moment we've had between the two of them. Like, usually it's just Michael spilling everything and her providing very little comfort to him. So it was nice to see that, the roles were reversed a bit, with her actually showing some type of emotion and vulnerability, which is her favorite word, and then him actually showing her what she should do in that situation when he is then being emotional with her. He says hearing all that helps him to see her more and appreciate how strong she is. And again, it's nice for him to finally get something from her emotionally. Lindsay says she basically spent the majority of the marriage hearing that she is too much, and then they replay him saying it again the night before. She says she doesn't want to make herself any less, so he may need to find someone else. And I do agree, Lindsay, you should not shrink yourself for anyone, but girl, he ain't lying. You are a lot. I think anyone can admit you are a lot. It's going to take a real special man to deal with that all the time, girl. We then see Elijah Wan take Katina to the projects where he grew up, and he hopes, she doesn't judge him because they grew up very differently. He just has to tell us again that the projects made him go to college, pay off his loans, buy and sell a house, blah, blah, blah. In this situation, it is definitely the messenger that is giving the message, because I just can't stand Elijah Wan. She is happy that, he is letting this side of, him show and letting her into this piece of his life, because she's like, when we have kids one day, I can, drive by here and be like, this is where your dad grew up one day. And I'm just like, please don't procreate with this man. Please don't. He said the projects is why he gets upset when he feels like he is being played with. And I'm like, well, you need to go to therapy for that, because it sounds like in a sense he was a little bit jealous that Katina grew up in, a 5-bedroom house with her parents, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can't be mad at the way she grew up because it was better than how you felt like you grew up, sir. But he thanks her for looking past his flaws, and she's just completely giddy about it because she likes any type of compliment that she gets from him. We then see Mark and Lindsay get a visit from Dr. Pepper, and they talk about their difficulties. She asks what they need help with, and he says his struggle in the marriage has been the same struggle he's had for weeks, and it's hard for him to be overly affectionate to her when they really have these arguments that drain everything from him and basically show how she kind of flipped when they were in Vermont. He tells Dr. Pepper that she just gets to be too much, and he tells her to stop, and Dr. Pepper as asking Lindsay, like, well, do you stop when he says it? And she's like, oh, he's just playing. He's like, stop. And then he's laughing, but I'm like, but he's saying, stop, girl. Just because you take it in a playful manner, you really don't mean for me to stop. This man has told you multiple times as you're like grabbing his hand or pulling his arm or just annoying him to stop. So I don't understand why it's now just fun and games and you should not take it seriously. But every little thing that happens to you, he has to basically stop the world from spinning and make sure that Lindsay is happy. Like, Lindsay, that's not how any of this works. Dr. Pepper asks if they can ask each other questions, and she says no, because he really just makes justifications for his behavior. And I'm like, Lindsay, we go through this every week where everything that you put off on Mark is your exact behavior. Like, you are seeing a reflection of yourself, or what you're saying he's doing, you are doing as well. Like, I continue to have a hard time struggling with how she does not see that. Like, you are always justifying your behavior and why you are acting the way that you're acting, why you are lashing out. Like, it's always an excuse. So if you're going to say that about him, say that about yourself as well. She says she isn't going to let him in anymore because she's not going to let him hurt her. So I'm like, typical Lindsay, putting 20 on 10. Dr. Pepper tells her, those are pretty final words. And she asks him, have you asked him if he cared? And she's like, no, because I really don't care what he thinks, and I'm just not sure he's the right person for her. And I'm just like, Lindsay, stop being so dramatic. Like, she constantly says things to get a reaction and a rise out of people, or to get pity from people so that they can then feel sorry for her for what she's saying, and she can be consoled and hugged. Like, that gets old, and nobody wants to do that all the time. If you want to leave, leave, and quit being dramatic about it. She then asks him if he does care, and he says yes, because he is not doing things to deliberately hurt her. And she acts like she basically doesn't believe him. She says as his wife, she needs him to put her first, and she can't keep his attention for like 5 seconds because he's like on Instagram, he's on Snapchat, he's on Facebook, he's texting people and all this stuff. And I'm like, it's because you're annoying, Lindsay. Like, he just doesn't know what's going to come out of your mouth and what you're going to say and what you're going to do. So he uses all these other things as distractions to avoid having to really have these conversations or situations with you, because he know they go left so fast. And not saying it's right, but I don't actually blame the guy. Okay. So Dr. Pepper says they are two people who said they will give it their all and they need to do the work. She asks Lindsay to reduce the pressure and asks Mark to provide more affection. And Lindsay just can't even say okay. She just always has some sort of rebuttal back. She just wants everything to be her way, and it's so freaking annoying. They talk, she's like, I just want somebody, that'll try different things and eat different foods and all this. And I'm just like, so you're going to sit here and act like you have not shoved all these different types of foods down Mark's throat that he clearly did not want, that he has tried just to appease you? You're going to act like he didn't do none of that. Girl, if you don't get out of my face. Mark and his green eyes at this point are stressed the F out. I mean, it is just, this poor man. So now it's 9 days until decision day. Michael and Jasmina go to the house he last lived in with his mom. He said he hadn't been back since he cleaned out the house over a decade ago. He's anxious because he doesn't know how he would feel about being in his own neighborhood, but he does discuss the good times and then takes her to the park where he would play with his brother. He then reads his letter to his younger self and talks about how rough life was, and that, he will be okay throughout all of it. Really, to not be afraid to let his emotions out, showing his emotions and not make him less strong, to really let people in and then hold your mom a little tighter, a little longer, spend more time with her, and that she would be canceled the first time around, but the second time it would stick around. He told his younger self that he would be better than okay and that he would thrive. So I just thought that was just so sweet. And I was hoping that was going to be like a full circle moment for him, where it's like, he's addressed, I feel like, all these things of his past throughout this whole season, and then coming to his childhood home, writing this letter to his younger self, that's a nice way to put a bow on it, where let's not bring up these traumatic events to this man again to have him discuss on national TV. Okay, Married at First Sight, I'd appreciate it. Jasmina says that the growth from him when they first met to now is very beautiful, and this is really the first time I feel like they've equally shared something, really close to them. They both gotten emotional and they both supported each other like this. And I'm just like, if y'all don't get it in after all these emotions that's being shared, I don't know what else is there to do to get y'all to get it popping up in here. I just don't know. I just don't know. So now we go into Noy and Steve. They go to Steve's childhood home first, and his mom still lives there, so they can go inside. He says that they would sneak out of the house when they were kids by putting the car in neutral, pushing it out the driveway, and then starting it so his parents would not hear it, and talk about all the parties they had in the backyard. He then shows the room that he shared with his two brothers and shares the stuffed animal he had as a kid. Noy judges him because, his mom still has it. I'm like, girl, but yet you want 3 kids. You're going to hoard everything that those 3 kids have until the day they leave this earth, so quit it. She shows him his high school yearbook. He says he was pretty popular. He got voted best dancer. And I'm like, so you and Noisy going to be able to, show us some moves? What's happening here? He shares one of his friend's songs that he kind of did a little rap on. He mentioned burnt CDs. And I was just like, those were the good old days when we could make our own mixtapes and they were for free. Like, that was so nice back in the day. And I'm just like, well, Steve, I guess you can fall back on a rap career. If all else fails, you can start rapping, I guess. I don't know. So she said, because of her childhood, it almost made her grow up faster, and she can understand because it's so different than how he grew up. And again, I'm like, the childhood traumas of it all, y'all need to really address that Married at First Sight, like figure out how these people grew up and how that influences their current behavior and get them therapy for that. Okay. We then see Lindsay and Mark getting ready to take the cat to the vet because at this point the cat looked like he's been in a bad fight. Mark then gets emotional because he says the cat's been with him since 2007, and we see them at the vet. They're hugging up on the cat. The vet does some x-rays and sees that there's actually a spot on the cat's lung that will spread, and basically the cat will be in a lot of pain, so the vet suggested that they put the cat down. And Mark gets emotional, Lindsay gets emotional. No lie, I get emotional. I'm kind of in that same boat right now with my pet. I've had my dog since 2007, and he's getting old, and I'm having to consider these options of putting him down. So this hit home for me, and I was in my feelings, y'all. I ain't gonna lie, I was in my feelings. So next we see Katina and Elijah Wan. They go to a church, and I'm just like, Elijah Wan needs all the Jesus that's in the building, in the pews, in the back, in the kitchen, in the foyer. He needs all the Jesus that he can get, okay? She says that she brought him here because she grew up in church and her mom made her do a purity ring class. And I'm like, so how did that work? Never mind. She shared that her grandmother lived with them growing up, and basically they couldn't miss church. And Elijah Wan said his dad will come pick them up for church most Sundays as well. She does share that when she started this process that she found out that her mom had breast cancer, so she prays every day. And she says because of the prayer, that's why she has so much peace in her life. And I'm just like, you need peace, Jesus, all the disciples in order to deal with your husband if you decide to stay with this man. Good luck, Katina girl. Good luck. So Steve and Noe go to a dance class, and I'm like, hopefully we don't have a repeat of the dance classes of the previous 2 seasons. Y'all know how that went with Michaela, and then how that went with Brianna and whoever her husband was. I can't remember, but yeah, those were tragic. So hopefully this goes better. Noe says dancing is what she did a lot of as a child because she could get lost and be free in the music. And I guess this was their way of kind of replacing her childhood home visit since she is not from Boston. But Steve's getting popping on this dance floor, and in this little monochromatic green outfit that he looking a little fine. And I'm just like, for the first time, like, so Steve, if things don't work out between you and Noe, and you can show me your bank account information, holla at your girl, okay? She says she wasn't free to express her emotions in her household, so music really helped her express herself. It was very therapeutic for her. She says this is why she has a hard time expressing herself to him because of her childhood. He tells her the consideration he has made to be gentle with her feelings, and he just really wants the same back in return. So next we see Jasmina and Michael get a visit from Dr. Pepper, and they are finally in a good place to have a visit from an expert. They have been conflict-free for a while, and it's been nice for us all, Jasmina. Fingers crossed it stays that way. She then tells Dr. Pepper that the turning point for them was the activity that Dr. Viviana made them do, where they had to be blindfolded and kind of talk about how they're feeling and it being a safe space for each other. So Dr. Pepper says Jasmina feels softer and asks what she learned about her husband to really help them to get along. She says that now it comes more naturally for him to talk about himself, and once he became more open, it made her become a lot more softer. Dr. Pepper asks what he needs to unlearn from his past, and he says to really his past, he was bad at not letting people in because he felt like he just shouldn't kind of burden other people with what's going on with him. But he really knows that he needs to now let her in and tell her that things that are going on with him. She asks Jasmina the same, and she says not being so independent. Michael says they have talked about having kids and they would start trying at about 18 months. And I'm like, again, do we know how babies are made? do we know how babies are made? Oh, okay, that's what we're going to have to do. So Dr. Pepper asks what they're trying now. She's like, speaking of such, what are we doing to practice? And Jasmine is like, we're still not physical in kissing. And I'm just like, y'all ain't even kissing. Y'all ain't even kissing. Oh gosh. I just don't know where this stands if they can't even kiss or touch. I know Jamie and Doug took things real slow on season 1 and they didn't cross the line until after the season was over and they're still married now. I totally understand it. But girl, this is many, many years later with Jasmina, who's someone that she says she is a physical person, but she has not been physical in really any way, shape, or form with her husband. Okay. She says she just isn't there yet and she just doesn't have the urge to run up and kiss him. And I'm like, ouch. Every episode, Jasmina, you don't have to keep digging the knife in and twisting it a little bit deeper by telling this man how you just don't get wet for him. You just not turned on by him. You just don't want to run up and kiss him. The feelings just aren't like we get it. We get it. Michael get it. The experts get it. We don't have to keep regurgitating this every other episode to let this man know how he just ain't doing it for you. Stop it, girl. Dr. Pepper encouraged them to show some type of affection because, you know, y'all planning for kids, but y'all not even kissing. So I guess you just supposed to get pregnant like Mary did. I don't know. Help me figure it out, Jasmina. So Noi then shares the letter to her younger self with Steve, and she talks about the world feeling very overwhelming and complex. She apologizes to her younger self for feeling the need to hide and how it broke her heart to see her mom work so hard, how she questions her place in the world, how she wasn't able to share her emotions. Steve hugs her and says, you know, it was emotional for her, and that was a lot to unpack. I think Noi, Elijah Wan, Jasmine, and Michael really have a lot to unpack from their childhood. And again, this is something that the experts or the show producers, whoever, really need to put into consideration because we have seen it time and time again where the way these people have grown up really affects their relationships. And you need to deal with that trauma before you talk about, oh, I want a healthy relationship, but you haven't healed from the things that happened to you years and years ago. Like, at some point, we got to address it, y'all. She says she felt like a burden to her parents because they just had to work so hard in harsh conditions. So Steve says, you know, that he has to understand and respect, you know, her need to really feel secure and stable in what she's kind of been asking of him. And he says he wants to provide that for her. We then go back to Mark and Lindsay. They had to end up putting the cat down. So she takes him to the woods because that's what she did as a child a lot. She says that she hopes the visit from Dr. Pepper really helped Mark to put her first. And I'm like, well, damn, Lindsay. The man's cat just died and you still got to put the focus and attention on yourself. I really hope he listened to Dr. Pepper. Where did you listen to Dr. Pepper? I don't understand how you expect this man to do all the work and you just, I guess, receive everything while continuing to give him the bare minimum or continue to get drunk and then demean him every chance you get. Like, oh gosh, you just get some on my nerves. And I basically feel like Lindsay is going to use this situation as another way for her to say how Mark's life is just falling apart and I've just helped him. I've helped him with the bed bugs. I helped him with, you know, the landlord. I've helped him with his job. And now I've helped him with his cat passing away. So it's just like another tick mark of all the things I've helped you with as your life continues to just spiral out of control. She said she liked the woods as a child. And Mark is like me. You ain't finding me in the woods because I don't know what's out there. Not happening. She said she would want to run away because her house didn't have a lot of love and it didn't feel like she belonged. She said her mom wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but she really wasn't suited for that because she couldn't really handle stress, and Lindsay felt like she got the brunt of that, so she just needed to get out of the house. She reads her letter to her younger self, and it talks about people saying she is too much, and I'm like, shots fired at Mark. She says she will learn how to navigate tough situations, and her wildest dreams will come true, and people will appreciate her uniqueness. Well, good luck finding those people, Lindsay. Mark says if he sees her be more vulnerable, then she will see more of basically the nurturing side of him, and they can be more peaceful in the long end. And I'm like, too bad this is going to be short-lived, because we know how fast the flip just switched with Lindsay. So Noi and Steve, they're still practicing their dance moves when they get a visit from Dr. Pepper. Noi says that there are still some things that are unknown, and she is nervous about the meeting. I'm like, the only thing that is unknown is the money that is in his bank account. Let's be honest, Noi. She asks how they have deepened their relationship, and Noi talks about opening up and not shutting down. She says she has made progress, but she just grew up not being able to express herself, so she's afraid to open up. Steve looked like he's calling BS on it. And again, I am like, if y'all recognize these things about yourself, like, I have a hard time talking and showing my emotions and expressing myself because of how I grew up. If you are able to recognize that, why aren't you getting some type of assistance and therapy for that? I don't understand how people will pinpoint what the issue is, but yet you want to do nothing to fix it, although you know it is something that hinders you in your relationships. Like, did you think you could get married and not ever be able to discuss feelings or emotions? Like, did you think that's how this was going to work, Noi? I'm just not exactly sure. So Dr. Pepper asks Steve how he has opened up, and he said really his past relationships sometimes made him feel a sense of abandonment, which that's how he feels when she decides to walk away. They talk about her not giving up her apartment and if they stay together, and he says he really wants to honor her feelings, but he doesn't quite understand, why this is the case. Dr. Pepper does share that she was in a 23-year marriage where she had kids and stayed with her husband, but she shares that now she's been married for 16 years and she has her own place. And I'm like, what the hell, Dr. Pepper? Did I hear that correctly? That she has her own place? Now, I couldn't figure out if they live completely separate or she has her own place because she be traveling and for work. What exactly happening here? Because we don't need to give Noi no type of ammo, Dr. Pepper, on this living situation, because I'm just like, you want to have kids in the next year and a half. What you supposed to do exactly? Be married to the dad and still have them in two separate households? Like, find somebody who's on your same wavelength with that, Noi, because it really doesn't look like Steve is on board with this. So finally, we get to see Mark's hometown, and he shares that it's been 2 years since he's lived in Quincy because he hasn't been back since his dad passed away. He gets emotional as he looks at the home, and he just remembers his mom really just yelling because his dad would kind of sit outside, wave at the cars, talk to the people, and his mom would just, yell at him, basically say, people don't want to talk to you, leave the people alone, whatever. And you can definitely see how the yelling and the flipping out from Lindsay can definitely be triggering for him based on what he dealt with his mom. So again, therapy. He reads this letter to his younger self, and at this point, y'all, I'm completely over the letters. He talks about loving his parents more, spending as much time with them as he can, and that's all I got, y'all. He does tell her that one day he wants to move into his childhood home, and Lindsay, of course, is not for it because she can't really do anything to please him. And I'm like, Lindsay, you acting like this is a house that he lived in with an ex-wife or something. Like, this man has essentially lost both of his parents since, his mom doesn't really have a connection with him like that. And he's having to take care of her through the assisted living that she's in. But I'm just like, you can't even say, yes, we can eventually live here. Like, he's not asking you to move tomorrow, but just to say, yes, this is something that we can do. You and Elijah Wan really think the world revolves around you guys and what you want your spouse to do, and they're just supposed to do it because you asked them to or you told them to. I'm over it. It is just exhausting. The episode ends with Dr. Pepper visiting Katina and Mr. Receding Hairline, and he says he's happy to see her. And I'm like, oh, really? This week you happy to see her? Okay. He says he's feeling good. The energy and the chemistry is there with the two of them, and they really bounce back. It's like they have an argument, they go pee, and they just, come back and everything is all good. And I'm like, okay, Elijah Wan. He says that recently they had an argument and things got really heated, and he told her to shut up. He told her to shut up. And he says, I went to the bathroom and I immediately came back and apologized and told her, I will never speak to you that way because I should not be speaking to my wife that way. And you needed to have a potty break to realize you shouldn't tell your wife to shut up. Yeah, I wish I would put up with this foolishness that Elijah Wan dishes out. Like, no. And if y'all have noticed, look at Katina's face, her eyes. She has so many bags under her eyes at this point. If you remember what she looked like at the wedding until now, it just looks like she's had all of her happiness sucked out of her by this man. Like, literally. It's such a different looking person. She looked to be so outspoken in the beginning, and now it's like when she's around him, sometimes she just shrinks into herself, and she just lets him talk. And it's regardless of what he's saying, she just lets him talk without agreeing or disagreeing, but just sits there. Oh, y'all, I hate it. They say they're on the same page about wanting kids in the next 2 years. And I'm like, last episode, wasn't you just complaining about this with her finishing school and everything that you wasn't sure? Elijah Wan, quit lying. He then talks about Katina being able to finish school and really having the kids because he doesn't want her to be stressed. Lies. She says, all men require attention, but she's like, no offense, but you are a lot to deal with and you require a higher level of attention. It can be draining in a sense. And I'm like, absolutely, Katina. Thank you for finally admitting it to an expert. He then says, if he was her, he would just tell her to lock in and focus on school as he's in a confessional by himself. And the producer's like, so you basically saying you want her to say no on decision day. And he's like, yeah, that's kind of what he's saying. It's for her to say no on decision day because he just wants the best for her so bad. And he, starts to get a little wet behind the eyelids. And he thinks we really supposed to fall for this. You ain't getting it from me. I ain't buying it. And I don't have no sympathy for you because at this point, you have just broken this child down, and then now you just want to leave her so that you can go back out in these streets and be Isaac. Like, get out of my face, Elijah Wan. I cannot stand him. I will be just as happy to see him get off my TV screen as I was to see Alyssa get off my TV screen. Like, I'm over it at this point, y'all. So next week, it looks like we're getting closer to decision day. Hopefully that's like the last or next to the last episode before decision day starts. And it looks like they will get to speak with their friends and family one last time. And I'm just like, it's probably going to end up being more of the same that we have already heard over and over and over again, y'all. But let me know what you felt about the episode this week. It was just a whole lot to deal with the emotions of it all. But, hopefully we're just in this thing for just a few more episodes and then we can move on. And then Married at First Sight can just start a brand new season in like the next day and a half after this one goes off, because that's how quickly they churn out these seasons. Let me know what y'all thought and let's chat in the comments. Until next week. Peace.